constructed a huge tunnel where we are going to store our fuels. That I think that was in the news earlier. And there is also we are also in the developed countries where like Canada and specifically if you can say like the Montreal underground pedestrian where the climate is very harsh. So people also use this underground space for general walking purpose, like going from one street to another street, because somewhere like if we have the money, we can afford to utilize this underground space for walking purpose also. Next, please. These are just typical examples, like this is the sewerage. In Mumbai especially, we have a very strong network of sewerage because of the Arabian Sea. And here the depth of the sewerage goes somewhere, it is goes more than 20-meter depth. So, and all the channels are linked and very well maintained by the BMC. And I can say the Mumbai is having the best networking system in terms of sewerage. Next, please. This is the water distribution system that is also being utilized as underground. And once it will be running successfully, all this space will be again utilized as a surface for like transport purpose, for any other development. Means effectively this much space is utilized if you will go underneath. Next, please. This is the electrical distribution system underground. It's a very huge distribution system, electrical system. I have also seen in Delhi while working in the this domestic airport development, station development. There is a huge system of AC system and all those underground cable that directly goes to the various like T1A, T1C, T1D. So all these networks, this is the very huge network that is running all along the airport terminal and all along the roads covering it. So effectively, while doing this underground networking and this cable arrangement, that much space is being effectively utilized as underground space. Next, please. Again, in Mumbai, we have a very good system of underground parking. It is there in Delhi also, in major metro cities, and especially in developed countries, we have like G+20, G+24, like this type of underground parking space utilization is also available. As we know, in metro cities, the number of four-wheeler is increasing like anything. So to overcome the problem of parking and space constraint at the surface level, we can utilize the underground space to develop the parking space, and effectively we can also manage. By doing this, we can manage the traffic control also. So this is again the just utilization of traffic and utilization of underground space. This is like fuel storage underground tunnel. Next, please. This is the example that I have quoted. Montreal street where people can walk in harsh. There is a mostly like the climate is very harsh there. So people use this, and one of the study also found that there is a decrease in the crime rate when people goes through this street, because it's enclosed and safety can be guaranteed also. So that is also one aspect in a developed country where safety is major concern. Next. Now back to this our specific like MRTS, underground space utilization in MRTS project. Why we need MRTS project at all? So here we need our metro system because it will give us the mobility, safety, traffic congestion reduction. I think all of us know that I think it's a very proud moment for Delhi Metro when we have received first green carbon credit system, and our metro was the first in all of the world that has been received the carbon credit. This carbon credit has been there is a system independent analysis by the UN agency. Generally they do the analysis, and they by their study they can conclude how much vehicular traffic has been reduced due to the service of metro. So by that we were become the first metro in world who has which has received this carbon credit. So these are the like who has visited in Delhi in late 90s or early 2000, they know what was the condition there of the traffic. And now we have all along Delhi, we have very easily connectivity all along Delhi because of metro. It's a safer, it's a mobile, it's a fast, and also comfortable. And this is in terms of the commuter experience. And in terms of like sustainable development, when we talk about the development should be sustainable. When I say sustainable development, that means our future generation will also get the benefit of development. Like, we should not utilize all our resources at our own time, and when our next generation or next to next generation will come, they must have something to utilize. So here we have to see also the development should not be unidirectional or compromised. So when we use the underground space for MRTS system, that means we are also doing the development in a sustainable way. Why? Because by doing this, we also very minimal land acquisition is there, hardly for just for entry exit purpose. We utilize the land, or there will be some one or two shops are coming all along the metro station. I think most of us have visited Delhi metro or other metros of our country. Then we can see especially in underground metro station, there is only entry exit space is there, and that entry exit space also we planned in such a way that it will come in the footpath area, so that maximum space goes inside the existing road system. So nowhere we are going to uh, acquire the land, or we are going to disturb the aesthetic of our city, especially in terms of underground. That is the one benefit of the underground metro station. And while all the this biodiversity and ecology, this is also been it's a very minimal expense while we go for the underground station, underground metro work. And of course, there is a minimum demolition, minimum inconvenience to general public and to monuments, historical structures. And of course, there will be very less number of tree cutting while we going for the underground space utilization in metro development. Next, please. Here, just for the sake of, because I'm from metro, so and I'm going to give this presentation on underground space utilization. So I have just given one very brief comparison about on underground and elevated metro stations, MRTS projects. There is a few advantages that I have already highlighted. I just quickly repeat it. Like, it will occupy very less ground space, or no or little space on the road. Minimum noise pollution, that is one major aspect nowadays, because now we are very vigilant about the pollutions. Earlier we only concentrate on air pollutions and water pollution. Now we have also given more focus on noise pollutions. We have come up with some few innovative designs along association with CRRI, and we have also modeled some noise barrier for that. And also, as I have said, that aesthetic purpose is well served when we go for with the underground. Definitely there is some disadvantage, like it's a costlier as compared to the elevated. It's a 2.5 times costlier, and operation and maintenance cost of underground metro station is also more. Next, please. Before starting any project, whether it's underground or elevated, these are, in fact, I can say, like, these are the standard steps that can be used for any project to be taken up. Like, what is the use of this project? What is the need? When generally any company, any organizations, they go for the project when there will be need, or there will be some business requirement. So that is the first step. Second step, whether the project is going to be feasible or not. So we will go for the feasibility studies. Third, DPR, detailed project report. This detailed project report generally prepared where all the stakeholders will be invited. When I say stakeholder, that means all the person who is going to be involved or going to be affected by the project. So all are called, and through the newspaper, through everyone is being informed, and there is a general consensus meeting will be done, and some alignment which has been finalized in the feasibility studies is been again refined. And there are some instances that I want to share with my experience. We have also there are a few instances where the line or the stations which were earlier perceived to be elevated, after this consensus, it has been converted into underground, and vice versa. Once the DPR is approved by the central government or government or state government, as per the where the metro is going to come, after the finalization and acceptance, we will award the contract as per the funding agency's criteria. There is some, I will not go into that detail, just like metro is a very highly cost intensive project. Generally, a metro project, a normal underground metro station, only the stations I am saying, it will around 100 crore, 80 to 100 crore rupees project only for a single station. So you can imagine how much cost intensive is the project it is. So being a developing country, and we have our own priorities like social benefits and other commitment of the in the budget. So generally, metro organizations will not get the budget from the full budget from the government. So we go for other funding pattern, and we will tie up with the other banking agencies, even internal agency, and accordingly, as per their terms and conditions, the contract is being prepared. Sometimes we have to go global in our, like our contract need to be global, and some criteria and some technical specification have to be inbuilt. Thereafter, once the contract has been finalized, bid prepared, bid evaluated, and bid awarded, then the agency is in tie-up with the DMRC. We have our kickoff meeting, and we have certain discussions like how we will go for the construction technology finalizations, like whether we are going with the NATM, we are going with the cut and cover, or TBM. These steps has been finalized in the construction preliminary stages. And after this construction, when I say construction, that also include the system contractor. It's not only the civil part. Definitely civil has a weightage there, but like rolling stocks, bogies, all the signaling systems, all the ventilation in the underground space, especially this is the very major concern while we discuss about underground space utilization. Then it is one of the major aspects that our underground station must comply with the world standards in terms of other facilities like signaling, ventilations, air conditioning. And after all these construction activities, which also include system, final step is like we have to do all the compliances as prescribed by the CMRS. CMRS is the nodal authority or a highest authority who gives the final clearance for starting the metro project. It's a Chief Metro Railway Safety Officer. And once after getting the CMRS clarification or go ahead, the project will be commissioned for the general public. Okay, so this is, I have taken a bit time just to explain why how the metro project covers, and from the concept to commissioning, what are the steps. So this is now specific to underground metro work. Rehan, if I will be fast, please let me know. I will make my presentation slow if I will be fast.
No, it's fine. You are clear and audible very much.
Okay. Okay. Anything like if you want me to go slow, then please let me remind.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So now here we are in our main topic of today's, like underground metro work. So again, when we go for the construction, we have certain things to finalize, like our general arrangement drawing. This is the alignment drawing. We can also say this is the alignment drawing where all our curves, all our elevations, we can say like there is a schedule of dimensions, like when our bogies, metros, when it moves, what are the clearances it has to fulfill. and what are the lateral clearances, vertical clearances that need to be finalized. And this alignment finalization is done. It's a very important part. We do this alignment finalization in such a way to minimize the cost, minimize the disturbance to normal public, and maximize the traffic count. So once the this alignment is finalized, then we will be in a position to freeze our lines. Like all of us know there is a various line in Delhi Metro, line 1, line 2. So once the line is finalized, alignment is finalized, we can go for
Dear audience, please switch off your mic. Dear participants,
so once the alignment is finalized, thereafter we will go, our second step will be of utility identification, and it's shifting. I think there is some disturbance is there, I think.
I am trying to identify it.
Mr. Zaid, please do not talk. Rizwan, please. Try to keep silence, please. Listen. Please switch off your mics, please. Switch off your mics, please. All the participants.
Yes. So
Switch off your mics, please.
once we finalize the alignment,
All the participants are requested to please switch off your mics, please. Sharik,
हाँ
yes,
माइक बंद करें वो लोग. हरी up.
please switch off your mics, please.
Sorry, Shivda, just wait a minute, sir.
No.
okay.
Yes,
Thank you, sir. Now, once we finalize our alignment for the metro project, then we will go for individual, like we mark the stations, we mark where our tunnel is going to come, where cut and cover portion is going to come, where TBM part is going to come. So our next step will to identify the utility and support shifting, like how we are going to shift this utility. Like I have quoted my experience in working in a nearby airport, and all of us know airport is having all the airport is supported by all, like 33 kb cables is going on, 66 kb cable is going on, number of optical fibers are there. So it's very important while we go for underground construction, it's very important to identify these utilities, because these are not only in general purpose, but their impact will be going to be very catastrophic. Suppose if we are working very close to the airport and we have cut the signal of like airport control system. So all those the flight landing and departing flight, they will have no any communication with the ground staff. For that, it was a very rigorous exercise from the Delhi Metro side. We have consulted all those experts from the airport, dial team, Airport Authority of India, and we have come up with a conclusion that, and we have formalized a way how to proceed. So we will see in next slides how we have taken up the utility supporting and shifting there. In this third steps, like once we will in a position to find freeze our area, then we will go for preliminary investigations in terms of soil investigation or borehole log details. We will also see these details and these informations, this investigation, it will not one time. Like in DPR construction, generally we do this borehole log data we take in 1 kilometer each. Like each borehole will be done at 1 kilometer stage. But while we do the actual construction, we try to take the borehole data at 100 meter each. And in case of station area, we will do at each 50 meter interval, we will take this borehole. We will again see how with the progress of construction, how this data is being gathered and what are its cost implication on the project. The fourth part is instrumentation planning. As we go for deeper excavation, we also have to ensure the nearby structures and the buildings that there should not be any settlement or deflection to it. So we have to continuously monitor. And we also need some base data. When I say base data, that means while we are doing the project, there is a nearby unauthorized colony there while we are doing the airport metro station work. There, the number of structures already in a very crumbled state, and there is a lots of crack there. So we have to identify those cracks, and there is a one historical gate also there by the name of Mehram Gate. It's a Aurangzeb era gate. So that was also marked as a archaeological safe site. So we have to identify such structure nearby our excavation, and we have to do continuous monitoring of that. We will also see this in detail. Now, construction methodology finalization. As I have already told, while awarding the contract and kick-off meeting, we come up with some methodology how to proceed further, like whether we are going by cut and cover method, drilling or blasting, either we are going to use TBM, which type of TBM. But again, this is not yet freezed until unless we will get the sufficient data in terms of borehole and the profile. Then with the help of the designer, we always discuss this, and we can always change this, because once it will be adopted, then we can't revert back. So we take the times, and we will finalize this construction methodology after detailed investigation only. Then once this methodology is finalized, then execution will be done. So these are the steps. Now I will go in detail with individual steps. So please. It's a very rough sketch. Generally, the alignment is being done in the AutoCAD drawing. Nowadays, it's a beam system. It's like this area. If you can see, there is a. This is the terminal 1, and these colorful lines are showing this alignment. So we have to see how to mark the alignment on the ground. This is a very preliminary drawing. We need to do number of refinement on this drawing with the help of advanced technology available with, like we use the Bentley system to refine the curves and station location. The red color is showing the station location. Next. This is the area, the yellow area, that is the mark here. That is the underground station. The IGD airport underground metro station is shown as in a yellow color, and you can see here, this is the T1C, T1D, T1A. This is the airport area, and all these are the offices and the establishments which support the airport. So I just again briefed that my experience is working with Delhi Metro. I'm going to share, and specific to that underground station in this domestic airport. Okay, next please. See, this black color, again this black color, this is showing the station layout. There is a one subway, also long subway, that is connecting to the airport, and all these colorful lines, green, pink, orange. I will just want to confirm these lines are only the electrical lines that I have shown here. I have a combined utility drawing also, but that will not be able to properly read here. So you can imagine if you can zoom it a bit, it is possible to zoom it further. This seat, particular seat, by control scroll. So you can see it, all these HT lines are there, LT cables, HT 11 kV, 33 kV. So all along this network of cables are existing there. So, and all these cables are running somewhere along the upcoming stations and somewhere crossing the station. So as I have already told, we have to mark this on the ground. We have to, in collaboration with the DIAL team and the Airport Authority of India, we have to mark, and we have also done the trenching, and we have, as per the specification, we have laid all these cable, and we have we were able to save our construction zone with all this utility. This is only the electrical cable that I am showing. Again, I am reminding, there are optical cables and network of water pipelines are also there. Okay, next, please.
Yes.
This is the water pipelines, and somewhere just to highlight how difficult to work without shifting or without supporting this these utilities. Okay, next, please. Next step, once we support or shift our utility, then we will go for, generally it is presumed that by the 2 and 2.5 meter we will get all the utilities. Generally we made our contract also like that, because the maximum depth that a water pipeline can go is like 1.2 or 1.5, but electrical, especially 33 kV cable, it's go up to 2 meters. But beyond that, we don't go in our preliminary stage, so we don't have much knowledge about the strata, because most of the area is filled up soil. So top 1 meter or 1.5 meter, we can say it's not a virgin soil or not a actual ground condition. So to get assess further the geology there or the strata there, we will go for the soil investigation, and for that, there is some standard practice that we followed as per the IS codes. Like we go for the borehole, we calculate, we take the RQD samples. After that, we calculate their RQDs. All these, once it will, all the data comes to us, then our design team will assess this data, and as per the RQD designation, the calculation and the support structure and all those design of the slabs and walls will be done as per this data only. So this data is very important, because it will decide what is going to be my thickness of the wall, what will be the thickness of slab, what will be the depth of the pile, whether my pile is going to be end bearing or skin friction. It will again depend upon the strata and this soil condition. So we take our time while after the project starts, we do rigorous study, and we the sample taking, and we appoint third-party team also for all conducting this test, so that we will have actual data, and the result and the design will be done as per those data. Okay, next, please. This is the graph that I wanted to say how this geological data gathering with respect to the project life and goes, and what will be its cost. In the y-axis, we have like how much data we have gathered, like 1/3 data will be gathered in the preliminary design stage. While we are doing the detailed design, 2/3 of the data will be gathered. And at the time of construction, when we start, like I have said, at least we must be sure of the 90% of this data, what is going to become. And all this, the cost of this investigation in internal, when we will be having the 100% awareness, then the cost is approximately 3% of our civil Schedule A costs. When I say Schedule A, that means the station or tunneling cost. Okay, next, please. Once the construction will start, the design is finalized, the drawing has come to us, then we will go for the construction. Before the construction, as I have said, we will monitor the existing structure. We will do the background monitoring. Background monitoring is nothing but the monitoring before the actual construction start. Then we will do the vigilance monitoring. This vigilance monitoring will be like during the construction period. Once I will start my construction, then I will visualize what is being impacted. Like what will be the impact to my base data. At the time of the background monitoring, we collect the base data, and our designer give us a threshold values. Threshold values means like at which value we need to take care of, and at which value we need to stop, and we need to reanalyze and reassess our methodology. And thereafter, this closeout monitoring, like once we have finished the construction, then again, while this O&M operation is being running, in at least 3 to 6 months, we need to again monitor those structures which were earlier sensitive. Okay, next, please. This is like in the case of tunnel. Generally, in Delhi Metro, we have a practice that we will assume the active zone. Active zone means like we will do the active monitoring is around the 50 meter from the axis, tunnel axis, and for the vigilance zone, it will be like up to 100 meter from where the tunnel axis is going on. Similarly, in case of stations, we have again this vigilance zone and active zone, as I have briefed earlier. So the distance, it is again like, it's not a standard, nowhere it is written. It's our general practice from the phase 1 that we are following, that up to 50 meter we are doing the active instrumentation, and like up to 100 meter we are vigilant, we are checking it, but the frequency is less. Next, please. These are some of the way by which we can monitor our excavation. We have our tilt meter, we have our BSP. BSP means like a building settlement point, road settlement point. There we installed, and on as per the frequency, we take the readings and compare with the threshold value. Okay, next, please. These readings are important. Why it is important? You can see here. This is like a existing building where there is already crack is there. So we have installed a crack meter here, and we have taken the base reading. Before actual starting of the construction, this activity has to be done to take the base reading, and we also prepare building survey. We also done the building survey, and whatever the defect or the cracks are available, we take the pictures along with the owner of the house, and we signed and also take the countersign so that it will be a proper record, and it will serve as a base reading while we are going for the construction. So it will be very useful at later stage. Next, please. Okay. Now, all this initial reading, once we will done with, then we finalize how to proceed. Like even in the, I have said the construction, we have a number of methodologies available with us, like cut and cover, drill and blast. These are the, drill and blast is one of the oldest technique for the tunneling. Tunnel boring machine, NATM, it's a very famous. In fact, NATM is also being used in the Delhi Metro, especially for the crossovers, like passing from the one cross passage, passing from one tunnel to another tunnel. So while making the way in between these two tunnels, generally this will be made approximately 244 meter interval. It is a guideline. So there we use the NATM method. And this box, jacked box, it is also called box pushing method. So these are the method that generally being used in the Delhi Metro. There are some other method also, but these are the method only being used in the Delhi Metro. Next, please. Okay, so this is the tunnel construction method tree. NATM is also drilling and blast. TBM, we have different type of TBM with us. Slurry TBM, EPB, everyone know earth pressure balancing, BD, varying density TBM. So cut and cover, we have two different method, bottom up and top down, and this box pushing method. And now to decide, to finalize which system we are going to choose, there is some criteria, some general criteria, like if there is we have a hard rock, then we will go with this sill tunneling, and if it is a soil, then we will go with the cut and cover method. It also depends upon the cross section and the continuity of the tunnel. Like if you have only 100 meter or 200 meter tunnel, we will not go with TBM because it will be very uneconomical, I say, because TBM to lower the TBM we have to make the shaft, and to take out the TBM we have to again make the shaft. One is called launching shaft, from where TBM is launched, and from where it is taken out, that is called retrieving shaft. So preparation of shaft is itself a huge task that will have a very highly cost intensive and labor intensive also. So to choose it depends upon the continuity and the cross section, and also if we have a curved tunnel, then also TBM machine is not so useful there. And at the same time, it depends upon the cost consideration and how much time is available with us. If the time is like we don't have much time, then we can go for the TBM because it gives us the fast result, but there will be cost. And of course, limit of surface disturbance and environment limitation, like cut and cover, we have lot of surface disturbance. But with the TBM, we can easily pass through beneath the ground, and nobody will be even aware of that the tunnel is going on. So it also depends upon how much disturbance is allowed at that area. Okay, next please. This is the table, just for reference purpose I have taken this table here. It gives us the some advantages and disadvantages of different method for drill and blast, TBM. So I have briefed in a very already that where we will go for the cut and cover and where we will go the TBMs. So this is just for reference purpose. Next please. There are some advantages and some disadvantage always with the project, with the specific methods. So now let's confine ourselves only on cut and cover method, because TBM is going to be presented tomorrow. So I will restrict myself to cut and cover method only. Again, in cut and cover, there is a 3 or 4 method available with us, like D-wall method, also called as diaphragm wall. There is a like second piles and seat piles, soldier piles also will used in tandem with the horizontal planks, also called as wooden batten. In detail, we will study in the next lectures, next slide, where this D-wall will be used and where these piles are used. It is like if we have basically D-wall when we use, when we don't have any problem with the groundwater, and up to I can say 20 to 25 meter depth, we can go with the D-walls. And with the D-walls, we have minimal traffic disturbance and minimum surface area disturbance. And with this seat piles and second pile, these are also known as bottom-up method. Here we will have maximum surface disturbance, and it is being restricted as compared to D-wall. Next. And this specifically, this seat pile will be used in the case of ramp. What is the ramp in metro MRTS project? When like all of you, if you have visited this underground metro station, when we from the underground, when we come to the elevated, there will be ramp. So in the ramp area, all the excavation, 90% we will do with the help of seat piling method. Okay, next. This is a typical example of top-down method, also called as D-wall method or diaphragm wall method. So where construction of underground station or cut and cover area that we have to do, generally we see what is the depth of that particular stations or cut and cover, and what are the data available there. If the water table is high, then we will generally try to avoid the cut and cover method, because it's very difficult to complete the task when the water table is high by using these methods. We will see again. Next slide, please. Yes, here we can see these two methods. first is bottom-up construction and second is top-down construction. What is the difference? As the name itself suggests, bottom-up. What we do, we put up these piles or seat piles or in association with these planks as per the design data all along the station box or cut and cover box, and then we start the excavation of the strata, and we will go up to the desired level or up to the level where our track is going to come, where the metro structure is going to come, the lowest metro structure in platform level or track level, you can say. But in top down, what is happening? In top down, again the same process, we will put up the retaining wall or the piles, but first of all we will do the excavation at the top level. You can see here there are the struts and this white line in the second picture. These are the, like, we start the casting of the roof first, like we are going top to bottom. So first of all we will cast the top structure. We will put up some shafts or cutout, and these cutouts are huge. Why? Because from this cutout only we will lower our all the excavation equipments. We will see in the picture, next picture. You can see there is one JCB is working there. From this cutout only, this equipments and all these ventilation systems will be given. So while we are going down, we are constructing the slabs. We generally in metro structure, we have roof slab, we have concourse slab where normally we move for getting the ticket, and then the platform slab from where we get the train. So there are 3 levels, and in all these 3 levels, there will be, in these 2 levels, there will be cut out to reach up to the platform level. And once we construct these slabs, roof slabs, we can open the traffic on that by backfilling. Only that much portion, which is the cutout, there we will not allow the traffic to move, and we will safeguard it. Otherwise, all the surfaces are available for the normal public. So that is the benefit of using the top-down method in place of bottom-up. While in bottom-up, we have to excavate all along. Okay, next please. This methodology I have already explained. It's like a retaining wall. Okay, next please. So these are the steps of top-down construction methodology that I have just explained. In step 1, we put up the retaining wall in terms of either diaphragm wall or soldier piles. The purpose of to retain the wall, and it will also, in case of D wall, it will also serve as the station wall also. While we are doing the D wall, the grade of the concrete will be used as same as the design wall concrete. So it will give us the same strength, and we can also utilize as a station wall with proper jointing treatment. Once we install this retaining wall, then as I have explained, in step 2, we can do the top roof up to the roof slab. We do the excavation, and we just put a strut there. And from this, there is a cutout. In step 3, you can see there is a one cutout below the strut. From this cutout, we can lower all our equipment and we can start our activity, construction activity, while all the traffic movement can be restored. As you can see from this figure number 3, this traffic's movement has been restored to its normally not exact original location, but somehow it will give some relief to the common public. Next. As we can see from the this step 5, we have like we are going inside, and we are also this white hatch mark is showing the slabs. So we are also constructing the slabs. So once through the help of the shafts or cutout. So once all the slabs, lower slabs have been cut out, we will come up, whatever the shaft or cutout left in the concourse slab, that means second middle slab, again it will be filled, and the roof slab will be filled, and in the step 6, it will be complete construction and it will restore to its original position. So this is the methodology used in the top down from step 1 to step 6. Okay, next please. Now, in bottom-up construction methodology, as I have already told, that it will be the same as putting the retaining in terms of soils with the in terms of soldier pile, and all these soldier piles and D-wall, this will be designed with respect to the earth pressure there. As we have collected the data up to this stage, we have all the data, and our designer, with the help of those investigation data, come up with the design of the soldier piles, their section, their size, their depth, and accordingly we put up, we fabricate those soldier pile, and we will install those at the site. So in bottom up, once we will put up this, thereafter we will start the construction all along on the our prescribed area, and here we have certain limitations, like in top-down method, we will be able to restore the traffic at least up to 1 lane or 2 lane while constructing the roof slab. But here it is not possible because it is all along excavated. Okay, next. Though sometimes I can say we once or twice we have provided the steel deck, but that was a very costly arrangement, and that is also being done only when we were reached at least up to 50% or 60% of the desired depth. Then we can provide the steel decking system. So these are the steps of the bottom-up construction methodology. The steps are, we can say, similar, just opposite to what we have done in the top-down method. Here again, we use the strutting system, Wheeler beam, along with the struts. We use extensively, and all these Wheelers will be supported by these soil anchors. And we will again, since the depth is more than 17 to 18 meter, and the strata, somewhere we also found the fractured rock that we will see in the pictures. There we also do some treatment to the rock surface or fracture zone that we will see. Okay, next. Again, we can see from this step 4, 5, 6 that we have reached to the formation level. Formation level means desired level, up to which where we want to go. There we have casted the slab that is called the base slab. Thereafter we can we will erect all the columns, all those undercrop slabs. Then we will come up the concourse slab. Then we will turn the roof slab, and it will be restored to its original position. And then we will backfill and reinstate the position to the original condition, nearly original. Yes, next please. So we have gone through the top-down method and also the bottom-up method. There are some comparison, like which method to use and what are their impacts. So we can see in terms of labor intensive, top-down is a bit skilled work. Why? Because there is a lots of panel is coming in this concrete slab. We will see this cage, how it will be lowered and how will the joint will be formed. There is some pictures. So there we have to ensure the joint should be perfect. There will be no water leakage. So that, because as I have already told, this wall, the D wall will be act as the permanent wall of the station area, underground station area, or the structure that we are being made. So there should not be any leakage. And we know that nowadays the coupler is being used extensively. So while putting this cage, we also need to ensure the coupler positioning should be perfect and the coupler should not be damaged. Why? Because while we put up the bar to the coupler while we doing the roof slab or concourse slab, then it need to be exactly matched. So it's a very, we can say, as compared to the bottom-up method, it's a skilled work. And again, it has associated with the larger cost. Waterproofing is always a challenge in top-down method because to seal the joint is a bit difficult. In bottom-up method, we have all the surface available with us while we construct. We can also while we make the bottom of the walls, the outer walls, or you can say the outer wall of the structure, we can always treat those walls with the best available waterproofing material. That is, in our contract, we generally use the best available waterproofing material. We don't care for the cost because this is the very important aspect. So we have also like full control in case of bottom-up method while doing the waterproofing. Space, of course, as I have already explained, for space, it required less space and the speed is also faster. In bottom-up, we have to excavate all along the area, so it will require the more space. And in terms of access, as I have told, in top-down method, we provide these cutouts in the slabs. So access to excavation is limited. Like we can lower only one excavating machine or maximum two, and we have to provide all the ventilation systems so that people working inside this cutout need to be fully ventilated. But in case of bottom up, all the area is open, so that is not an issue. I have also have photograph here where I can show that in case of bottom up, more than 5 or 6 machines can work simultaneously. Again, dewatering, there is always chances of water leakage in case of top down, and in case of bottom up, it can always be controlled. Okay, next. This is the typical photo where we can see the partly constructed roof slab, and that the area that is being seen as a vacant, this is the cut and cover area. I think we will be able to see next picture better. Next, please. Yes, we can see here, like we have utilized all these veiling system. There is a soldier piles, and this is example of bottom up method. You can see easily the walls are separate. Here we can treat all these joints and the walls with the waterproofing material. So this is an example of bottom up method. Next. Next, please. Here also, this is the example of bottom up method. Next, please. This is the entry exit structure. And here we have again utilized the bottom up method. Like we use these soldier piles in along with this wooden plank, and veiler beam is there. And you can see in the veiler beam there is a soil anchors. These anchors are there to stabilize this veiler beam against the earth pressure. Next, please. Typical example of bottom up method. Next, please. It's a fireman staircase used for emergency evacuation purpose. Yes, backfilling. Once our roof has been constructed, then around 2.5 to 3 meter depth we need to backfill. So we doing the backfilling, again we need to go for some investigation. The soil that we are using for the backfilling purpose, we do all the tests. We calculate their density, their moisture content, and we specify that not more than 300 mm layer can be placed. Like while we backfilling this roof, then in a layer wise we backfill, and each layer is of 300 meter, and we are properly compacted, and there will be test. We do the site sand replacement method test and all those things to calculate the density there. Okay, next please. This is the launching shaft. You can see there is a two shafts are there. So it can be used for the lowering of the tunnel boring machine. And you can see there the walls are the concrete walls. So this is an example of top-down method. Here it will be utilized as a outer wall of a structure. Next, please. This is the bridge that you are seeing. This is like it can be also used as a decking. In domestic airport, we have provided this decking for the movement of the traffic. But you can see the depth there achieved nearly 50%. Then we have provided through all this cross bearing and veiler system. Okay, next please. And this is an example of like we can do the waterproofing. Next please. This is when we do the piling. So this is one of the rig machine. Next please. Yes, this is the cage that we have discussed in the while doing the D-wall method in top down. You can see this is the huge cage. There are cover blocks and there are also the couplers, so that see generally in normal practice we use the lap length and double bars, but here we provide the coupler, and this coupler positioning is very important so that we will get the reinforcement at right place at right alignment. Otherwise there will be no any lapping will took place. Like in case of coupler we need to couple it, but if like my double bar is coming in this direction and it will coupler is misplaced, then it will not be able to lap. So very skillful operation. Next please. This is the cutout at the roof, and you can see how the ventilation is provided here, and there is hardly any a single machine that is being worked. So top down is bit slow because the access is very limited. Whatever the excavation will be done by only this one or two machine, and gradually it will go down. Next please. This is the second level of top down method. What we have seen, so this is I can say that this is the concourse level. So you can see there are veilers at the concourse level, and below that also the excavation has been done. So, and there is a one cutout at the roof level. So this is an example of top down method. Next please. So this is a typical example of bottom up method, where we have all along the soldier pile and veiler beam as well as strut. Next please. This is again an example of bottom up method, where you can see this wooden blank is being fixed in between the soldier piles. Next please. This is again bottom up method with the help of a strut. Next please. This is bottom up method. Here we can you can see the level, the lowest level is the formation level, where is our track will come. From there, this scaffolding arrangement is there. From there we are coming up. So first the base slab is being constructed. Okay, next. Typical example of bottom up method. Next. These are again the bottom up method, and we can see it's a well supported by the shotcrete and the this rock bolt that we will see in the upcoming slides about the shotcrete and the rock bolt. Next please. This is the launching shaft. You can see these trolleys are there for to collect the muck from the tunnel boring machines. Next please. This is taking out the muck from the underground work. Sometimes we also also build the ramps so that these trucks will also have the access. This is a shotcrete operation going on. We will see from the next slide some more about the shotcrete and the rock bolt. Next, please. Generally, especially in Delhi, in Dhola Kua area side, especially this airport side, we got the rocks, and the rock somewhat more or less very strong, but it's not a continuous. Somewhere we get the weathered rock, or somewhere we have the joints. So we need to also stabilize this rock while doing excavation. So the method that we have employed, and these are the standard methods of shotcreting and rock bolting. For shotcreting, it's like generally we do the shotcrete to stabilize the slope. The rock surface that is exposed to the weather, and where it is like there are joints, so we don't have much confidence on that. And to stabilize it for our working, we opt for the shotcreting. Okay, so we have two method of shotcrete is available with us: dry mix process, shotcrete, and the wet mix process. The difference is the dry mix process shotcrete don't use a mix already mixed concrete or mortar. In fact, while shooting the I request please show some photographs below these two slides, then it will be easier. Next. Yes, we can see shotcreting. It's like it's a nozzle, and it's mainly controlled by the operator, and it can be dry and it can be wet. But if it is a dry, then the strength achieved will be much faster. And while it will be wet, it will take some time to gain strength. So we need to wait for further excavation before it will stabilize and have sufficient strength. So in our project, we mostly used the dry shotcrete. But the disadvantage of dry shotcrete is that it has more rebound and more wastage. When I say more rebound and more wastage, that means while putting the shotcrete on the exposed surface, it will come out, it will not stick. Okay, please ऊपर आ जाइएगा रेहान भाई. Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Wet mix, we have seen it. There is a generally less rebound, less waste, but the time, like always, we have a limited time. So even it's costly, but generally we use the dry shotcrete only. And we also use this shotcrete is not used in isolation. Shotcrete is being used along with the rock bolting. Rock boltings, as we see in the already seen in the whalers, there are soils anchors. Soil anchors are provided to soils anchors are provided to stabilize our whaler, and it is once drilled and put up with the proper grouting as specified in the specification, and it will be stressed to the desired level to attain the requisite strength to resist the required earth pressure. In similar way, rock bolt we use while we get the rock surface. And next, please. This rock bolt, what they have done, they generally, where we find the jointed or fractured rock surface, there we install the rock bolting, and they work as a reinforcing element. And in case of when there is a movement in the rock, so this bolt, what they done, when there is a tendency to move, this bolt will develop a restraining force that is transferred back to the rock mass. That means it will act as a restraining force to the force that is being generated due to the movement of the rocks. So the function of the rock bolt is to restrain those movements. And generally it is being used extensively in all the projects, especially in the hydro projects and these highways and expressways being built nearby the mountainous area. And we have used this extensively. And once the desired level of the rock bolt, the anchoring length is being decided by the designer, and the grouting, and after putting the rock bolt, we also stressed it to the desired level so that it will restrain the requisite amount of force. Okay, next please. Next. So these are the example of the shotcrete. While doing the shotcrete, we need to ensure that the angle, wall angle, and this nozzle angle must be right angle to give the maximum efficiency and minimum wastage. Next, please. These are the example of the shotcrete, and shotcrete is all done. I have just forgotten to mention that along with the wire mesh. So generally, shotcrete will be done in a 2 or 3 layer as per the specification, and it will be done along with the wire meshing. Okay, next please. These are the example of the shotcrete along with the rock bolt, and in Weller beam, as I have said earlier, you can see these are the soil anchor that has been cut after the stressing. You can see these soil anchors in the Weller beam. So the numbers are there, and it has been after the stressing, it has been done, and this rock bolt are there along with the rock, rock bolt plate and the shotcrete. Next, please. This is a typical example of shotcreting and rock bolt along with this soil anchor. Next, please. This is the bottom-up method. What you are seeing here, this is the base slab. So base slab has been casted, the beam is being casted, and all along here we have found very hard rock somewhere, and a drastic change in the soil condition or rock condition there. Here it's a very hard rock, and just after 50 meters we have got the weathered rock. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. This is the roof slab. Next, please. Again, this is the soil anchors that is being shown. Next, please. This is the entry exit of the structures. Next, please. Here we can see these 3 machines are working together, but for the safety purpose, we ensure that it must not be in the influencing zone of other machine while doing the excavation. These are the rock breakers. The rock there is very hard, so we need to employ very hard rock breakers and number of the rock breakers. Next, please. In this picture, you can see what I have said earlier in the bottom-up method, the advantage. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 machines, 7 or 8 machines are working all along the station area. So that is one of the advantage of using the bottom-up method. Next, please. This is the top from the view from the top of the base slab. You can see this by the color of this rock, that is highly weathered. We may be able to see in the next figure, I think. Next, please. Okay, so so just 2 or 3 slides I have put up, last slides. These are the slides that you have seen, the construction work. This is the result of our hard work. Now it has been converted into the station. Next, please. This is the concourse area that we have seen. It is the same picture of the same station, airport station. This is the view from the subway, that is from the airport side. Next. this is only one structure is coming up in this our underground metro station, and this is to support the air conditioning system in the station. This is basically called all the chiller and all those things are available here. This is the ancillary buildings, and it also holds the water supply and the fire water. In case of any fire, all this water is available here for fire extinguishing purpose. Next, please. This is the structure, the entry exit that we have seen in the diagram. So now all this after the restoration of the station entry exit. Next, please. This is the same box. This is the same box that we have seen earlier. Now it has been restored, and all the work that earlier in the picture that you have seen, it's completely restored and open to the public, and the traffic at the ground level has also been restored, and there is hardly any trace that we have done a lot of work here. So next, please. Yeah, thank you. I think I have covered at 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Shahzad Ali, for your informative and such a comprehensive talk. How simplistically you have defined such a complex construction with the help of some pictures, self-explanatory pictures. Now the session is open for the participants to ask their queries to the expert, please.
Thank you, sir.
Participants would like to clarify any apprehension, any question?
Sir, the presentation was itself so explanatory from the start to the end. So I don't think there will be more.
Okay. Thank you once again, Engineer Shahzad.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
We are looking forward to hear from you again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
For being part of this event.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
सर मैं अगर मुझे 1 मिनट दे तो
Shahzad, thank you very much.
Sir,
Very authoritative lecture you have given. Okay, we are very happy to have you there and proud to have you there. I'm also thankful to Professor Malik Shoaib Saab and Dr. Rehan Sadiq Saab for their presence as session chair, and Rehan for conducting this whole program. So it was very nice presentation. I have 1 or 2 queries just for sake of that the alignment which you have decided.
Sir.
Is it parallel to the local train network which we have there, or it is different?
Local network, train network you are saying, sir, like Palam railway station, you are saying?
Shahzad, आपकी volume.
Sir, I am able to listen you. Am I clear to you, sir? My voice is coming to you? Am I audible, sir?
You are audible, but not on our screen. On our phone, you are audible.
Sir, am I audible, Rehan bhai?
Yes, Shahzad bhai, you are audible.
Yes. Sir, in general, we always try to be very nearby the already existing public transport, because that will give us a very good connectivity, as you have asked whether we are trying. But unfortunately, in this case, sir, we have our Palam metro station. It's a far. But you will appreciate, sir, this metro station is being connected to airport, already existing airport, to facilitate the movement of the air passenger. So yes, you are always right, sir, when you say while planning, we always try to be nearby the public transport.
Okay. Very good. There is one more query. How much time you have taken? How much time you have taken to start the work? Means the planning was done, planning was done, it was decided that we are going for this metro. How much time was taken to put the men, the engineers, the machine, etc. before starting? How much time?
So basically, sir, what you are asking, it's a mobilization time that you are asking. At what time the
Yes,
resources has been mobilized? Sir, basically, when we award our contract and when we issue the LOA, letter of agreement, there we have in journal mentioned the NTP date, like notice to proceed. This notice to proceed, it is like when the contractor has to mobilize its resource. Generally, we assume because in Delhi already, you know, sir, you appreciate this, the construction activity is ongoing and all the major resources are TBMs and those things are already available. So we expect that our contractor, because the work are very huge and it's a mega structure, so we assume only the serious partner and serious company will come, serious contractors will come. So hardly in a month or maximum 45 days, we start our work, sir, after awarding the contract.
Okay, very good. Okay. And there was a controversy about the depot of metro depot.
Yes, sir.
So
Metro
I'm not asking any question related to that, but just I would like to put a couplet. देख बीमार परिंदे भी रहे घर भी बने, देख बीमार परिंदे भी रहे घर भी बने, नक्शा ऐसा हो कि कोई पेड़ गिराना न पड़े.
Yes, sir. बहुत खूब, sir. Sir, I will appreciate your concern about this ecology and environment, sir. Basically, sir, यहाँ जो मुंबई मेट्रो में there is a some, I think you know very well about, there is a issue in RA depot, but the government is trying hardly to find the alternative, sir. And fortunately, I am also associated with the team who is looking after the integration of this RA depot with the DMRC depot, which is coming in the line 6. Our different line. The RA depot is in the line 3, sir. It's an underground station. We are doing here line 6, completely elevated. So the proposal we are analyzing. We have also given our designs how to combine the existing line 3 structure with the line 6, and we are also proposing double decker depot to accommodate the line 3. But unfortunately, sir, even our depot land, the Kanjur Marg depot land, it has again the issue goes to the court, and now it is in between the central government and the state government. There's some issue.
Okay.
I'm audible, sir?
Yes. We have problem with our speaker, but we have managed somehow. Professor Abdul Baaq, Chairman Sahab, welcome.
Shehzad Sahab, I want to congratulate you for very good lecture, informative also, and I hope in next time to come, inshallah, you will come Aligarh for another better service to be started soon.
I will be thankful, sir. मैं तो दुआ करता हूँ कि ऐसा कुछ हो कि मैं आऊँ अलीगढ़ में.
Up to that time, I think you will be the at highest position, maybe. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
We hope so.